Hi everyone, thanks to this episode of Nick Egan Times. On this episode, we have an incredible and multi-talented guest. We have Maria Thattil. Maria is an author, TV presenter, actor, speaker, activist, and creator. Maria was propelled into the spotlight when she was crowned Miss Universe Australia in 2020, and Maria was placed in the top 10 of the international competition in 2021. Maria was also only the third woman of colour to represent Australia in the pageant 69-year history. Welcome to the multi-talented and graceful Maria, and thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Nick. So good to be here.
You're very welcome. How's it all been going?
Everything's been good. Things have been good. It's been busy, non-stop over the last few years, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful. How are you?
I'm incredible. Life's good.
That's good. That's really
Right,
good.
thank you. All right, let's jump straight into it. Take us back. Tell me about your life growing up, your family, and I guess your general journey so far.
Yeah, so I guess going back, I am the daughter of Indian immigrants, and they came to this country a few years before I was born. And I guess I speak about it a lot in the book, but it was interesting growing up, trying to figure out where I fit in terms of my identity. In that I struggled to fit in with my family and my ethnic roots when I really wanted to fit in with people at school and my friends and people who weren't South Asian, but I didn't feel like I belonged with them and started to feel a sense of a bit of a cultural identity crisis growing up. And I was a pretty shy kid. So I kind of subdued myself a lot. And that sort of continued on into my teens. And I feel like having a bit of a hybrid cultural identity that I didn't accept, it means that I just rejected a lot of myself, a lot of racism that made me reject a lot of myself. And um, I feel for a long time I probably didn't really know who I was. And it wasn't until my 20s that I started to unravel that and untangle and dismantle some of those beliefs. And it was a great process to throw myself into because it got me here. So growing up was interesting. I was surrounded by a lot of love, a lot of family, good food, very rich culture. I was very blessed, but it just was difficult trying to make sense of that as a kid when you want to fit in with everyone around you and, you know, yeah.
Yeah. All right, thanks for sharing. That's great. All right. Tell me about your incredible book, Unbounded, and tell me about the process behind that.
So Unbounded, it's like I've sort of aired my heart and soul in a book. And I wrote that because I've been journaling since I was a kid, been journaling since I was 8 years old. And my dad actually told me when I was 19 that I should write down how I'm feeling and when I'm going through things. I had a mental health low when I was 20 years old. And dad told me to start writing. So I did. I think I was 19 actually. And I started journaling and found it incredibly cathartic. And I've been journaling ever since consistently. So I had those to draw on. And when I entered this space, I knew that I wanted my career to be one that was impactful and that I gave people, um, I guess, work that would impact them in a way that leaves them feeling like they can overcome hard things in their life and they can create a life that they're proud of. So I wanted to write Unbounded to do that. And I did go back to therapy while I was writing it because I had to unearth a lot. But it was a wonderful thing to be able to share, my background's in psychology. I've got a degree in psych. I use that, my spiritual beliefs, and my lived experiences to create this book that, hopefully has impact.
Yeah, definitely. How hard was it to be, I guess, very open and vulnerable as well? Because obviously you're sharing it with it's essentially the world. I guess, yeah, it's a hard thing to do to be so vulnerable.
It is, Nick. It is a hard thing to do. And it's really interesting that you asked me that because the reason it was hard is not that you're sharing what you've been through, but interestingly, because I never wanted the book to come across as I've healed all this stuff and I'm good. Here it is. Like, I don't know everything. I'm figuring things out. I'm probably going to hit lows again and go through things again. And I didn't want it to not be human in that respect because the reality is, you can learn all the lessons, and sometimes you slip into old patterns, but that's part of it, right? And it was on another podcast that I was on. I was chatting to a woman named Kemi Nekvapil. She's an executive coach and an author, and she has a show called Power Talks on Audible that's built on her book Power. And we were chatting about this very concept, where we were talking about my childhood and we were talking about all I've done. And interestingly, we were talking about power, and I realized how much of mine I give away, because even though I've overcome a lot of the stuff that I have to build this career and be in this place, I still at the moment, I guess when I was young, I changed my skin because of racism. I was closeted because of sexism. And you overcome that stuff, and here you are on the surface. I look like, okay, I've got a career I really love, everything's good. But I realized I was hiding in that career and thinking, I need to keep working, I need to keep doing to be good enough. And it was only in that chat with her on the Audible show that I just realized, okay, I'm still dealing with stuff, and it requires you to be vulnerable, right? And that's why it's hard to put something like that in a book out, because I had to be really clear. So I found it hard, but I was very clear that I'm still human. And in the book, I think in chapter 10, I talk about how I quite literally still can slip into those patterns, but I remember the teachings I've put in Unbounded, and it helps me pull myself back to what I know and my higher self, I guess. So, yeah.
Well, it's very inspirational, and you should be very proud of yourself. Yeah, it's incredible.
It's very kind of you to say, Nick. Thank you so much.
Well, tell me, how did you get into the your modeling career? Like that's amazing too. How did that all transpire?
Well, I only started modeling after I became Miss Universe.
Right.
I'd never, I'd never really done it. Like the way I did photo shoots was, so I studied psychology, I studied management, I was working in corporate, and when social media started to take off, I would just share beauty stuff that I loved, and I didn't really have much of a following. I'd go on and say, this is this lipstick, or here's a makeup look I've done. And I remember it's a beauty brand called Front Body. They got a bunch of beauty content creators together to do a photo shoot, and that was like my first ever photo shoot. Outside of one that I had organized myself, which I talk about in the book. It was a pretty rough experience. But that was like my first shoot with someone else. And it was me as a content creator. It wasn't as a model. I didn't book other modeling shoots or anything till after I became Miss Universe Australia. Like it's pretty interesting. And it was something I was very aware of, that I didn't look the part as a tradition. You might like, and here's the thing, I'm not going to be negligent to the fact that some people would be like, okay, you're conventionally attractive, but what people look for in a model in the Australian landscape is different. And when I started booking jobs after becoming Miss Universe Australia, it was because of my name, not necessarily because of my look. And even now, when I get booked for jobs, it's because there's a campaign attached to it and they need my voice. I don't do modeling just to like to I don't book those jobs. I just don't. Like, they'll book it because of what I have to say or what I represent. And that's how I fell into it. But I like that, because from the start it's always been about, I guess, what I have to say, and I really appreciate that.
Wonderful. Tell me about being crowned, obviously Miss Universe Australia. That's an amazing achievement. Obviously, you're clearly proud of it. What was that like in that specific journey? Because yeah, that's truly amazing.
Thank you. It was wonderful, because I remember seeing the woman who won it the year before me was an Indian Australian lawyer. That's what prompted me to think maybe I can do it too. And she's smart, she's driven, she's everything, and she's different to what I thought. So it made me think, hey, if she's different and she can do it, maybe I can do it too. So from the moment I applied, I did it with the intention of, I want to have a certain impact. I want to, if they're going to pick me, it's going to be because of what I represent and what I have to say. And I, I was in lockdown the entire time I competed. So I didn't get to go do photo shoots or do my hair or do anything. So the way I showed them, okay, if you picked me, this is what you'd get, was I jumped on Instagram Live every week from lockdown, and I would speak about a certain topic of something that was happening in the world: current affairs, social issues, feminist issues. And I would say uncomfortable things, like I talked about racism, I talked about sexism, I talked about sexual harassment and stuff that, I guess people might be wary to say this stuff while they're campaigning for something like Miss Universe. But I just really wanted the directors and the selection committee to know that if they picked me, I was always going to be vocal, and that wasn't something that I was going to shy away from. So it was wonderful to win when that was what I campaigned on. And I shared my family online in my content. Like I wasn't doing photo shoots. I had my mum. My mum took my swimsuit, my official swimsuit image, in front of the garage door.
How cool.
That's what I sent in. I did. My mum and dad came with me to the local church. There's a hall attached to it because we couldn't even go and do a competition and do the walks or anything. We had to submit videos doing it. We didn't have space in the house we were living in at the time. So mum called the local priest and was like, "Can we use the hall to film her walk?" So there's mum and dad and I filming in the church hall my swim walk, my evening gown walk. Submitted that. So nothing about it was conventional, but everything about it was very me. Like my parents were involved, my brother was involved, and I got to say what was on my mind. And so winning in that way was so special because it just showed me like all I had to do was be myself. And that was really nice.
Yeah, definitely. You're very authentic and genuine. It shines through too. So you can
Oh,
do.
that's so nice. Thank you.
All right, and what about going international? That's obviously going to another level. What was that process and journey like?
Goodness, it was hectic, I'll tell you, because the pageant world is like diehard sports fans. Like it is very intense. Like Australia is not a big pageant country, but some countries it's like their national sport. And so it can be wonderful when people like you, but if people perceive you as a threat or they don't like you, you will wake up to YouTube videos, entire YouTube videos of people talking about you and dissecting everything about you. And it was just toxic because like bless my mum, she wanted to be abreast of what everyone was saying and across everything, but I lived with them at the time. And anytime I'd come home, there'd be a YouTube video about me on the big TV, and I'd be like, "Mama, I don't really want to see this." She's like, "He's just this is just what this blog is saying. It's really nice." And I'm like, the good and the bad. I don't want to hear any of it. Like I need to just be focused. And people were like racist at times, and they said that I wasn't Aussie enough to represent Australia. They would always talk about my height because, typically women are, taller when they do this sort of thing, and you don't have 5'3" women representing their countries. So I was going to be like one of, the first to do that. I looked different to what people thought Australia looked like, which is very silly. And it was hard hearing that stuff constantly, but I ended up deciding to use it in my campaign. So I thought if this is what people are going to do and say, I'm not going to pretend it's not happening. They're going to pay attention to this. I will use it and show them, well, that's actually why I need to be there. So it ended up getting me quite a lot of attention out of 80, 75 to 80 women and countries because there was so much buzz about me, positive, negative, whatever it was. I'm like, the judges are aware of me, and we ended up placing sixth at the competition because, and they asked me about these things in the room when I went in. They asked me about what's it like with people telling you you're not Australian enough, and how do you feel knowing you're the shortest one here? And I'm like, it's got no bearing on my substance or my capacity for impact, and I'm excited I get to show people that. So I was very confident. After it did affect my mental health for a little bit, but I eventually I thought I'm not going to come this far to buckle. So I think I did a good job, and it was amazing. And then people removed the height requirement in many countries after that. I think it started national conversation here, and I still have a career where I talk about this stuff. So I think for me, I just kept learning like the more you do and the different spaces you take up, people will get louder who don't want to see you win and do this stuff or challenge the status quo, but you have to keep going. And it's been a really great lesson because I'm taking up new spaces now. Like since then I've built a TV career. I wrote a book, I'm on socials, I do advocacy, and you still get those voices. I still get them. But it's my motivation. So I learned some good lessons in that competition.
Amazing, yeah, you should be again extremely proud. It's also crazy to think that in this day and age there's still that element of racism, you know what I mean? Like we're such, for example, in Australia, we're such a multicultural country as it is. So it's just so backwards to even have this as a part of society.
You'd be so surprised though, Nick. Like I have a friend. His name is Tarang Chawla, and his work is incredible. Like he's one of the most incredible men I've ever met. He does a lot of work campaigning against domestic violence in this country, sexism and gender inequality. And he spoke about something very recently in the media, and it ended up on the wrong side of Twitter. And you should have seen some of the racist responses people had to him, where like it's not crazy to think like the people who have these ideas that people of color are immigrants to this country, that we don't belong, we should go home where we belong. They said things to him like, if you don't like things here so much, go back to where you came from. Like, I've heard this. When I'd call out things, people would say, they mimic and say really awful things with rooted in stereotypes. And it's like, I'm seeing Tarun go through it now. I went through it, and to me, it just tells you like racism isn't really hateful, very, very like full on people in a dungeon somewhere saying hateful stuff, or it's not even just necessarily extremists in the street who are like in your face. It is people who are just in your community, and they have these biases that they don't realize, where they look at people who are different and just have these ideas that they don't fundamentally belong. And unless we talk about it and we talk about how it affects people, like I always talk about how being a woman of color in media, the odds are against you, because it's not like, for example, with me, with some of the aspirations I have, there's not been anyone like me who's done it before in this country. And that is crazy to think about, but it's like that in itself, you're coming up against structures that haven't helped people like you thrive. You don't have the same opportunities. You might be trying to give people the same opportunities now, but the landscape isn't the same. So racism, it's not necessarily saying really ugly, hateful things. It's the systems and the way things are here and how people are made to feel, whether they get the same opportunities, whether they are perceived as being others. And so when that stuff was happening to me through Miss Universe, it was just like, oh, okay, it's just amplifying what's there, and it's sad, but it didn't surprise me. How invested people were in like letting me know, that surprised me, because like people would die hard. Like if they couldn't get to me, they were commenting this stuff on my family's Instagrams. And that really sucked. But it's okay. It's why I needed to be there. And that's why I had the career that I do, because I really firmly believe in challenging that.
Incredible. Touching on that, from going back obviously to where you are now, how do you think you, I guess, matured or handled it, like mentally? Do you know what I mean? Because, we're all humans, we all have emotions, no, nothing, like, no matter what people say, it still can affect you, right? Like, regardless of what anybody puts on a tough wall. So how have you matured, like, to now? Because it's truly amazing to obviously have to deal with that.
Yeah. When I was younger, not even younger, I want to say 3 years ago. So when I first started, before I even won Miss Universe, and I had like a small social media following, and I was doing beauty content and things, if someone would send me unkind stuff, like I would screenshot it, blow their name, post it on my story, and I'd put this energy in trying to use it as a teachable moment. And when it was happening during Miss Universe, I wanted people to know, like, okay, I'm handling it with grace. So I would use this stuff as teachable moments, never sharing people's names or outing people or sending that same energy back. But I would like give this energy to explaining why it was wrong, or explaining this is what we go through, and this is how we should treat people, and like taking on this labor that I don't need to take on. Whereas now, the way I look after my mental health is, if people send me stuff that is hateful in any capacity, that is unkind, that is asking me personal questions that I don't want to answer, I'm putting in a boundary, and I don't have to hold a space for that, and I will just block. I just, I don't need to give energy to that. And it was friends in the industry that I've, over the past 2 years, I've made some really great friends who've been in this for a long time. And they've all said the same thing of, you've got to suck the oxygen out of it by not even, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do any of that. Just suck the oxygen out of it, and it kills it. It squashes it. Because even then, when you give a little bit, then you have anxiety about it and you stress about it. And so for me, unless it was something super serious, or if I had the space to maybe talk about something, because I still do, and I write columns and that's how I express myself, but I don't feel the need to do it every time. And I just definitely don't hold a space for bigotry.
Yeah, great. Good on you. And, just, yeah, not acknowledging it. Not even giving them the time of day. So, yeah, incredible.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right. let's jump back to or touch on, should I say, the podcast to the Power Talks with Kemi that was available on, which is available, sorry, on Audible. Tell me in depth more about that and about setting a life-changing goal as well.
Yeah, Kemi's amazing. Her career is profound. And I like how she uses her expert knowledge with her lived experiences to have impact, which is something that we have in common, and that's where we connected. But in that chat with Kemi, I genuinely had a realization that I wasn't aware of, which is something I talked about earlier. We were talking about power and we were talking about growth, and I was saying how I've suddenly gotten to this place, not suddenly, I've gotten to this place where I built a career that I love and I've overcome some pretty hard experiences to get there. And when you look at it on the outside, like with all the career stuff, and you see someone busy and thriving and whatever, it's like good for them. But when I was talking to Kemi, I was saying how I do put this really crazy pressure on myself to keep working, to keep doing, to just constantly be like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? And never sitting still with some of the great things that are happening. Like once my book was done, I was already on to the next thing. I didn't even take a minute to sit there and go, oh, like I've written a book, like how wonderful. And I realized when I was talking to her that that came from the fact that my self concept, which I'd worked so hard to move it beyond racist ideas, sexist ideas, ideas that you're not enough, suddenly it was wrapped up in my career. And so if I'm sitting still in my career, then who am I? What am I doing? So I've conditioned myself to think I don't need to rest. I don't deserve to rest. I've got to constantly be working. So we had that realization in that chat, and it was a beautiful thing to acknowledge that, oh my God, that's still that scarcity mindset rearing its ugly head. And in acknowledging that, we set a really great goal that there are some things I need to do for just me that are rest and play. And we also uncovered that sometimes I've thought I was doing that in the past, where I say, oh, I'm going to the spa and I'm going to chill out. But what do? I set up my phone, I get some footage, I chop up some content, and I post it and share it. And I've told myself, like, oh, it's just nice to share these things. But no, it's you still commodifying these experiences. You need to make it worth something. Put it on and make it have value, because now other people have seen it. So we set this great goal of these things that I do, I need to have things that are just for me. It's not for anyone else. It's not for social media. And I do it because I deserve it. I deserve to rest. I deserve to play and have fun. And I don't need to turn it into something that proves my value. So that was really wonderful. And I've been doing it. So I'm going away for the weekend in a couple of weeks. And no one's going to know where I am or what I'm doing or like what that's like. And I'm just going to enjoy that and be present in it. And, I've been meditating again, journaling, reconnecting with my spiritual side. So there's a lot that I'm doing in my own private life, which is probably the result of that conversation with her, acknowledging like that I had still that issue playing itself out. So that was good.
Wonderful. All right, tell me about you came out as bisexual on air. Tell me about that, and again, that's been obviously very open and vulnerable to a certain degree, I guess. How hard was that? What was that like?
Well, it was hard because prior to I was dating women privately, and it gave me a lot of anxiety because I was worried someone. I just got back from Miss Universe, so people obviously got their eyes on you, and I just didn't want to get found out almost. Like I thought, I don't want people to see something, write something, talk about it, and it's not coming from me when I'm ready. Because I still had to talk to I had to figure it out, talk to my own parents. I want to do that on my time, but I went on this show, and it really strips you back being there. Like it strips you back. And it was this really vulnerable moment with someone who's my friend. Like, yeah, you're aware the camera's there, but after the first or second date, you're just you. You're all wearing the same clothes. You have no hair, no makeup, no nothing. So everything that kind of makes up your identity in your head about who you are, about who this celebrity is, that celebrity is, it's all gone. You're just people now in a really uncomfortable living situation. Very natural. You're not eating, so you're very vulnerable. And I was. And I really connected with someone in there, David. He's a really good friend of mine. And we were chatting, and because I was there and I was representing a charity that supports the LGBTQIA plus community, and I did it under the premise of I'm doing this for my brother who's gay. I didn't talk about myself once. The more I was in there in the jungle, the more I started to realize I'm really doing a disservice to the community and myself by keeping this a secret. And I was ready to share it because I also wanted to date and I wanted to have fun and do that and not be anxious every time I did it. So it just came out organically on the spot and I forgot about it for 4 days. And then the producers eventually were like, so you just had this big revelation. I'm like, oh yeah, I should probably talk about it with you guys. And they asked me like, do you want to share it on the show or do you want us to edit that out? And I said, you know what? Leave it in because I don't want to stress about how I'm going to tell the world this. If they're going to learn from a very chill conversation between a friend and I, that's the best way to do it because it should be that simple, you know? And in between the show airing and me filming, I obviously told my parents, and, you know, it was a learning journey for them. But, you know, since then, I've had a girlfriend, I'm single again. I tell my parents everything, like when I go on dates with people or whatever, and they get it now. Like my mum still has questions, but the world was really accepting. Importantly, I'm really accepting of myself. And I am so proud of myself because I know now that I would have been missing out on so much love and just, you know, really fully being myself if I stayed closeted. So it was wonderful. It was really wonderful.
Wonderful. Yeah, amazing. Good on you. And again, should be proud of yourself.
Thank
All right. Tell me about your own podcast. You've got your own podcast coming out this year.
I do. So, the Maria Thattil Show, it is launching in July. And it's just going to be a space for me talking about pretty much all the things I do share now, but just completely unfiltered and on my terms. Because I think when people see me, they see me on Today Show segments, or I'm hosting, I'm started guest hosting the project, or on Instagram where I write short columns for other platforms, all of this for other platforms. So, this is my show where now I will talk about what I want when I want. And it's great because me as a person, I'm somebody who, yeah, like I can get up and I can talk about feminist and social issues and very serious things that are happening in the world. But if I want to talk about something stupid to do with my family or sex or love, like I want to do that too. So it's just going to be whatever I want when I want, and pretty much life through my eyes. Conversations that I have, I want to bring my family on. It's just letting people in, like really letting people in.
Great. Sounds like great listening ahead.
So I think so.
I think so. You're doing your acting career as well as taking off this year. Talk to me about
Yes, I'm very excited. I made my acting debut this year with a role on a show that is soon to air. So that was really fun. I used to do drama classes when I was growing up, and I did some over the last couple of years as well. I really enjoy it. I'm a creative person. I love it, and it's been very cool. I knew after I finished with the book, I said I wanted to do this, and it was great to secure that role pretty quickly. And I'm excited to see what else comes up. But acting is definitely part of, yeah, more of what I want to do.
that. Yeah, cool. What motivates you daily?
Cool. My purpose and impact. You know, like I've just got like 30 plates spinning in the air at all times. But I'm so grateful that I get to do work that I genuinely believe in. And I genuinely think there is a consistent purpose underlying a lot of what I do. And I think it impacts people. And I hope it's positively. And um, that's what motivates me. I'm very lucky to get to do what I love every day. And I'm just very ambitious as well. Very ambitious, and there's so much that I want to do. So I wake up really excited about the future. And I like that, you know, I'm living a life where I'm able to look out for my family and um, being able to really give them a lot is a very big motivator for me. So I I love the life that I've created and I'm happy. Like I'm happy in my life. You know, it's things are good. And all that motivates me to keep going.
Excellent, excellent. And what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The best piece of advice I've ever received is to leave my footprint. And I think that was, so I went to my dad and my mum, but my dad said those exact words. And he used to say it to me from when I was like 8, 9, 10 years old. And it's different because people will say be yourself or go after what you love or whatever. But when my dad used to say to me, it's like I'm talking like a 10-year-old kid, leave your footprint on the world. Like from a young age, that instills in you this belief that you are capable of being impactful. And it's like, it's not even just like, and it's not to say like it's all to do with ambition and not just being happy or whatever, because your footprint can be that you loved the people around you so much and you left them with that much love and that was it. Or your footprint can be whatever. But when they gave me that advice from a young age, I knew that I could have impact. And that's why I used to dream really big and have these crazy ideas about what I could and couldn't do. And some of that got lost when I was a teenager and a young adult because of external things. But I think because that was really drilled into me from a young age, I was able to get past a lot of the things I needed to work through. So that is the best advice I've ever received. It's to leave my footprint.
Wonderful. And for your own inspiration, especially, as we touched on the multicultural side of things, especially how a young Maria coming up, right, that has similar ambitions to you, what advice would you give?
I would say to a young Maria that even, if she's got, and if this is to do with ambitions, I would just say to her, no matter what anyone tells you about what is possible for you, what you do have, what you don't have, what other people have done, if you are ever going to disappoint anyone when it comes to making decisions about your life, do not let it be you. Do not disappoint you, because the fear of the what if, like, what if this goes wrong? What if I'm not enough? What if people don't accept me? That is not as bad as the pain of regret. So disappoint everyone else, don't disappoint yourself. That's what I would tell her.
For sure. And uh, with women empowerment, it's really women's sports really taken off. We've got for example, the Women's World Cup in Australia coming up. It's going to be massive. How do you see that position, generally speaking? Women's empowerment, like, do you think it's still behind the times, or do you think it's really starting to be progressive now?
I think that's a really it's not an easy question to answer, because no, we're still, we're not where we need to be, absolutely not. And even within, when you think of what constitutes women, like, it's complicated, because within women as a gender identity, you have certain groups of women who are more disadvantaged than others: women of color, women with disabilities, transgender women. Like, so even within our own gender identity, we are still not having equitable experiences. So when you stack that up against the broader perspective, we have a way to go. We have a way to go within ourselves. So as progressive as things are getting, like, things can change like that. Like, look at what's happening in America with reproductive rights, with the Roe v. Wade being overturned. Like, the right to healthcare, abortion is
Yeah,
healthcare.
yeah,
I will vouch for it. Um, Look at the way that transgender women are treated in sport. Look at what's happening with drag story times and the way that drag artists are being treated, and the propaganda around sexuality and womanhood and things like that. So, no, I don't think we are where we need to be. I think we are miles and miles and miles and lifetimes away from where we need to be. Are we further than where we started? Yes, but I think there's a long way to go. And I know women who are actually in sport at present, and I know what their experience is like. And I can tell you, it's not roses. So I have high hopes and ambitions for all women right now, especially transgender women. I have hopes for them that things are going to change, but it comes with continued advocacy and not accepting the cards that you're dealt. So I'm excited about the future in that way, yeah, but we're not there yet.
cool. Thanks for sharing. If you were 18 again and you could change anything in your life, you could go back in time. It could be personally or professionally. What would you change?
Ooh, nothing. Nothing. Like, actually nothing. Even the mistakes I've made, or the things that I've done that have caused people hurt, like that I regret. Some of the hurt I've caused people over the years as I've been healing and growing, but I still don't think I would change it, because the lessons I learned from those mistakes are why I have grown. So I don't have regrets and I wouldn't change anything because I think everything led me to this point.
Wonderful. Maria, thanks for coming on the podcast. I do appreciate it. You know, you're amazing, you're an inspiration, you're incredible, you're very graceful. Like, yeah, there's just you're multi-talented. Like, I really look forward and watching closely your trajectory because it's just on a very upward skill spiral. So yeah,
You're very sweet, Nick. Thank you so much for being so gracious, being so generous with your words, and very kind to me and for holding a space. I really appreciate it.
you're welcome.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Take care.